This EV Rider episode is a co-production with AutomotiveAddicts.com. AutomotiveAddicts.com offers expert reviews and industry news. I don't think there's any question. Hyundai's Ioniq 6 is the strongest competitor yet to Tesla's Model 3. The Ioniq 6 is Hyundai's first EV sedan. Our top trim limited edition has 320 horsepower and 446 pound-feet of torque. So with me is Automotive Addicts publisher Malcolm Hogan. Malcolm, you spent a whole week with the Ioniq 6. Talk to me a little bit about the styling. What do you think?
Oh yeah, it's definitely something different. You don't see any cars like this with this design. It kind of harkens back to the Mercedes CLS. If people remember, that was a sloping roof coupe design sedan. But yeah, the design of this thing, I think Hyundai really did well. It's a head turner. You know, everywhere I went, people would, you know, stare at it and give a double take. Someone would come up to me and ask me, you know, what is this? You know, what is it all about? You know, it's like, you know, it's a start off with saying it's an electric vehicle, and then the questions start, you know, piling on. That's, oh, what kind of range does it get, you know, and all this stuff.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I'm excited that Hyundai went ahead and did a EV sedan, because it seems like everybody right now is just so into SUVs. When it comes to EVs, it's really kind of hard to find an EV sedan. Really,
Sure.
I was thinking about competition, and the only thing I could think of in this price range was the Model 3. Am I missing anything?
Yeah, I think you've nailed it. Anything else is slightly above.
So one of the things, we've been very lucky. We've been able to spend time with the three stablemates of the Ioniq 6, which would be the Ioniq 5, the Kia EV6, and the GV60. They all have their own personality, but did you have a favorite?
I would say for a mainstream vehicle, this would be my favorite, the Ioniq 6. You know, I had the EV6 GT, which was the, you know, top performance version of that car, over 500 horsepower. That was different. The range was a lot lower. You know, this I could live with every day. You know, having a range of 270 miles, you know, it gives you enough to, you know, not be afraid of going out of town, you know, traveling a little bit, you know, stopping at the DC fast chargers and charging, you know, 18 minutes, taken from 10% state of charge to 80% state of charge, which is remarkable. And I think Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis done well with, you know, their EVs and being the fastest charging EVs on the market right now.
And the supercharger advantage that the Tesla currently enjoys goes away in 2024, because Hyundai is adopting Tesla's NACS charging standard, which means that all Ioniqs will be able to charge at superchargers. What's going to happen is adapters will be available to Hyundai Ioniq 5 and Ioniq 6 owners. In fact, all recent Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis EVs will be eligible for the adapters. Then, once assembly lines are updated, the group's future EVs will come standard with native NACS supercharger ports. So Malcolm, of course, when we look at the Ioniq 6 or the Kia EV6, there's a lot of similarity in the layout in the dash. What are your thoughts about what sets them apart, if anything?
There's just little subtle changes, I guess you would say. I remember in the EV6 GT that I had more sound options, but once again, that was a more performance-oriented EV. You know, the Hyundai's done very well with their infotainment systems. Their touchscreen here is very user-friendly, has lots of different features and modifications you can for your settings and all that stuff, and customization options.
Yeah, and I did enjoy the Bose sound system. I thought the speakers were good, a lot of good bass. I do have to ding Hyundai, though, for not giving us wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a going issue, and I hear everybody who buys these things complain about that. There is a nice wireless charger down here for your smartphone. You know, has like a rubberized pad to keep it in place, because of course with EVs you have all this instant torque. It's going to move some things around, but you don't have wireless Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, which is kind of a letdown. You have to pair it through the USB. Of course, they do provide the USB, the original USB port, and then USB-C.
Yeah, and one thing I will give them credit for, at least they put it in a logical location. So the data port is right next to the wireless charger. So at least that piece of it is convenient.
Yep.
Car and Driver named the Ioniq 6 its EV Car of the Year for 2023. Compared to its stablemates, probably because it's a sedan, to me it just felt a little tighter in the corners perhaps than the other ones. And that makes sense because this is not as tall a vehicle.
Correct, yeah. Even the steering feel is a lot tighter than I remember the Ioniq 5 being, you know, and I think Hyundai just retuned a few things just to make it more, I wouldn't say edgy, but more performance oriented, but still not like an in-vehicle what Hyundai would have as far as a performance vehicle. That'd be interesting if they did come out with an in-vehicle, you know, something like this. That would be neat. I think they could because the Kia EV6 GT is around, so it would be fairly easy for them to utilize that platform, that drivetrain in this.
Yeah, I mean, really, all the software and hardware is already done for them, so I think you're on to something. I think that's a great guess. Now, the Ioniq 6 is a true sedan, so you'll see it's got a trunk. It's not a hatchback. However, the rear seats do fold down in a 60-40 split to give you quite a bit of versatility. The Ioniq 6 is comfortable for 4. In the back, it's got a pull-down armrest with cup holders, and it's got 2 USB ports and vents for the rear air conditioning. However, it does not have separate air conditioning controls in the back. Now, anybody that's, say, 5'10" or taller, they might have an issue with headroom. I'm fine, but I'm only 5'8". The driving position up front is also set for somebody 5'8". As you can see, I've got plenty of leg room. Up front, the Ioniq 6 has a tiny frunk that will just about hold a portable charger or maybe a laptop. Another standout feature of the Ioniq 6 as compared to many EVs is the opening sunroof. So many of them these days have fixed glass, but the Ioniq 6 does have a nice large opening. And thanks to this wind deflector, you're not going to have a lot of buffeting unless you're really ripping down the highway at, say, 75 or so. And I say that as somebody who spent a good part of the day with the sunroof open because it's a beautiful fall day here in Jacksonville, Florida. Now, we've got a top-of-the-line model with dual motors, but if you were to get the SE trim with 18-inch wheels and the extended range battery, you would get an EPA estimated 361 miles per charge. The base model comes with a 53 kilowatt-hour battery pack, or you can up that to the extended range model, which has a 77.4 kilowatt-hour pack. Now, if your biggest concern is range, you're probably going to skip the top trim all-wheel drive version that we have, although it has the bigger battery. Because it's all-wheel drive and has a larger tire package, it drops the range all the way down to 270 miles per charge. Now, to me, I think it's worth it for the extra performance that you'll see and the extra grip that you'll get in bad weather thanks to the all-wheel drive. Now, the Ioniq 6 has a really large price spread. You can get a base version for just under $42,000. However, if you check every box, you can break $58,000.
So back to the uniqueness of the design, you know, they have this neat square dot matrix, I guess you would call it. And that theme carries out through the whole vehicle. The headlights, the tail lights, interior bits, you know, a few lighting elements in here. Even the volume indicator on the infotainment screen has a little matrix dots as you increase or decrease the volume. I think those are nice little touches that kind of add to the unique aesthetic of a vehicle like this.
I totally agree. In fact, even if you look at the steering wheel here, you've got that pattern. Even if you put your smartphone in the wireless charger, you'll see the dot matrix pattern. Everywhere you look, they've gone ahead and given you a little Easter egg to look for.
Right.
The dot matrix styling runs throughout the design, including the running lights and turn signals up front. If you're lucky enough to find a 2023 Ioniq 6 on a lot somewhere, I know that's kind of doubtful, but if, Hyundai does say there are no mechanical changes between the 2023 and 2024 model year. One thing we don't get here in the US that I wish that we did are those camera mirrors in the interior of the automobile. If you look at the Ioniq 6's dash, it's got big areas at each end cap. And that's because if you had this in some parts of the world, such as Japan, you would actually have electronic display readouts instead of traditional mirrors. And why that would be nice is you would have a lower profile exterior, which means you would have slightly better efficiencies. It's because you don't have to have as big a mirror bump as you do for traditional mirrors like we have here in the US. Our regulations haven't caught up to some countries yet. Despite that, Hyundai still manages to maximize the benefits of side view cameras by activating them in the dashboard display each time you use your turn signal. So what do you think? Based on what you've seen, is the Ioniq 6 truly the Tesla Model 3 beater? Let me know in the comments. And speaking of Tesla, EV Rider found an owner that owns both a Model 3 and an Ioniq 5. I'll put a link to his impressions of each at the end of this video. If you've enjoyed this episode of EV Rider, please give this video a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel so I can bring you more adventures in EV motoring and more reviews like this one. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.